Today we're going to turn a wavy or a fluted rim vessel. I've never turned one before, so this is going to be kind of a learning process where I'm really kind of showing you the steps that I go through trying to figure this thing out. And I'm basing it on one that someone else turned. I got this lovely fluted container from Woodturn Rebecca Quattlebaum, and I look on the bottom of the date and it's been almost 10 years ago. Rebecca introduced me to my first meeting at the Chattahoochee Woodturners, for which I'm forever grateful because that's my main club. Now that I've been turning for almost 14 years, probably past that first meeting. Anyway, back to this. This is her creation, and it's lovely. I've never seen another piece of wood turning work quite like this. I did a search and could not find any instructions how. So in this video I'm going to try to walk through how do I figure out how to duplicate this lovely design. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a sketch or a plan. Every project doesn't need one, but if it's complicated, it's the first one, it's got unusual shapes to it, I find it very helpful. So we're going to sketch this thing out, and I think it's going to look a little bit like this. That's just one half of it. And then we're going to turn it kind of flat across the top. Then we're going to bring it in, and then we're going to have a thin wall for the pot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut these little scallops that go in on one side, and then on the other side next to it, it comes in. They're not going to meet; they're going to kind of overlap. But that gives me some idea of the kind of shape that I'm going to be looking for. Okay, this particular project is going to be spindle orientation, and I'm going to turn a very small one. I heard the term used in a wood turning demonstration. The term was maquette, which, as I understand it, is like a small example of a larger sculpture piece. So we might consider this a maquette. I'm going to use a spindle gouge. I'm going to create this curve here. I'm not going to do the whole thing yet on this first one. I just want to get a feel for it. I've got to do a curve on the inside, and I've got to do a curve on the outside. And the tricky part is the thickness of this rim and how many flutes, and I'm just going to have to play with that a little bit. So we're going to start with this coming down here through this curve. And then we got to have some kind of curve flowing into it. So there we've got that bottom curve. Now I'm going to haul this whole thing out since it's just a sample. This little ring here, this was still in the chuck. I use this for cutting felt for the bottom of some final chest that I made, so that'll give us some idea. I'm going to go ahead and start hollowing down from here. And of course we know, generally speaking, when we hollow with a spindle, we go from the middle out. Then I think it needs a curved surface here. And I'm going to get rid of this little bump in the middle. It would obviously go a lot deeper, but I think for the purposes of this, we're just going to smooth this. For the purposes of this maquette, this may be all I need to do. Now, next thing I need to do is need to mark off how many flutes. I generally don't carve on the outside of anything, so I don't have a dedicated fancy wood carving stand. Maybe I'll need one of these days, but I did make this thing a while back for putting a chuck. Here's just a real quick video clip on it. If you want to see more, click on the link for that. But I'm going to use this thing, I think, like this. I can use it in this orientation. And then because it's got a 1 inch on it, I'm going to use this little threaded adapter. Now I can put this chuck on there and it'll hold it in place. And I think this will work just fine for what I'm trying to accomplish. I had to redo my pencil lines because they weren't equidistant or weren't even close. I could have indexed this, but this is just an example. This will be close enough. So since I got multiple marks on there, let's use a magic marker to. This has been easier to mark in this direction. Then I get halfway in between each of these, and this may be close enough for what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, there's the flutes. Now let me put on a dust mask and let's start shaping this a little bit. Alright, since I don't have really fancy tools, I've got this little rotary, Black & Decker rotary. I've got this 1-course burr I bought for a class. It hadn't gotten a whole lot of use. We'll see if that works. Recognize for me to continue with this, to get a better feel for it, I do have to have this deeper, and it needs to go deep at least behind this curve. So let me do that a little bit more. Going to cut on dead center. This example to work, this has to be somewhat thin through here. Now I'm getting a little bit closer to what we're looking for. I think I want to thin it out just a little bit more. I use this hunter tool so I can get back behind here a little bit better. Lower this just a bit. Need to roll this over. It needs to stay fairly flat here, so I think I'm ready to start carving again. I got half the flutes going in. Now I have to have the other half of the flutes going out, and let me tell you, this is taking me outside of my comfort zone. Okay, I've got to round over these edges, I can tell that. I'm going to scallop these a little bit deeper, and then I'm going to come back and do a little sanding. Okay, now I'm going to switch to a small sanding drum for my rotary tool and see if I can't soften some of these edges a little bit. Maybe get rid of some of the burn marks. Okay, I needed to resort to something a little less aggressive than that sanding drum, so I'm using a 150 grit to get rid of some of these burn marks and just kind of shape some of these edges a little bit. Okay, since I'm reasonably satisfied with these petals, I'm going to go ahead and finish and turn this into a small little flowered pot. I think it's going to be that deep, so I'm going to mark where the bottom is going to be. Right there. And I think I'm going to take a thin parting tool, so there's no doubt in my mind where that bottom is going to actually be. That'll help with my shape as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and shape the outside a little bit more before I do the inside. So this curve here needs to be just a little bit broader, I think. Don't want to lose too much mass at the bottom because I do have to hollow it. I do want to get a feel for what that shape is going to be. Okay. I like that. Now let's go finish hollowing it. Spot check periodically, and I may want to get in there with a different tool. I think I probably will do the switch now. I'm going to go back to that hunter tool, see if I can't reach the bottom depth. I'll switch to a less aggressive negative rake scraper, not real thick, and I'm going to get rid of that little bump. I've got to come up just a little bit, come on dead center. Again, come under that bump, and across, down. So be careful extracting that tool. I'll do a job on these flowers. I've got a tiny little ridge in here, and I don't feel like I've got as good a feel for making that cut here, so I'm going to reverse the lathe and bring it in here where I can see what I'm doing. Bring this down just a little bit, bring it in a little bit closer for support, and we'll change the direction, and just slowly bring that. Edge a little bit, and that's I did a good job. Okay, now I've got some tool work here I need to clean up. I had to regrind this. I had to flip this negative rake scraper over to get the bevel on the wrong side, so I have this edge to do that. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I'm going to use the negative rake scraper to try to soften this, clean up this curve here. So I got to put it in forward again. Just really slowly. Okay, and a little sanding will clean that up a little bit. Actually, I'd like to get under that pedal a little bit. I think I'm going to bring it out a little bit, sweep into it, and see what happens. I think I'll rely on sandpaper to get rid of that little bitty, getting a little bit of chatter from that, from flexing. So let's see if I can get rid of that. I'll bring it up. Some negative rake, the shear scrape. Maybe I'll have better luck. Got rid of some of it. Okay, I finished shaping the bottom, sanded the inside, used abrasive paste, got everything nice and smooth. Now I'm going to part it off using this fluted Robert Sorby tool because it cuts so cleanly. Getting to the bottom, we're going to switch to a flush cut saw. Without this flush cut saw, I would cut it through, it would roll off and bounce across the floor and maybe damage it, so discretion is the better part of valor sometimes. Okay, now I'll sand off the bottom. Okay, I've mounted a mandrel in my collet chuck, and I'm just going to sand off that little bit of nib, maybe round over those sharp corners. holding on firmly and just keep trying to get the center cleaned up. Make sure it'll sit flat. Okay, I know this thing is tiny, but sometimes it pays to start small and work your way up. If you like this video, leave a note in the comments below if you'd like to see me turn a larger one now that I have a understanding of the process and feel like I could be successful at it. Okay, what did I learn from this little exercise? Well, I learned I could make a fluted little vessel. I can also, I learned that Rebecca has obviously made a lot more of these things because her attention to detail and the consistency of the flutes and everything are just exquisite. And it's going to take me a little practice, but practicing on sometimes practicing on small pieces takes a lot less work and gives you a pretty good feel for what the process is going to be, and that was helpful to me. Also, if you don't try something that takes you out of your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. Now, I also realized that maybe my wood carving skills peaked out when I did merit badge, when I did neckerchief slides in the Boy Scouts, but you know, I've still got room to grow. Remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back here.